I believe Anna Kasparian was on CNN and lit the house on fire.
Yeah, so I was on CNN yesterday. I don't know if I lit the house on fire.
I like how you started with, yeah. And then that happened.
Okay, I was on CNN. I was on a show called Reliable Sources. And I wanted to talk about it because there's some inside baseball, some thoughts. You know, a lot of people on Twitter have been commenting on it, and people seem to really like it. Now, they brought me on with Scottie Nell Hughes, who is a Tea Party conservative who is supportive of Trump. And so the night before the interview, which, by the way, happened on Sunday morning, I decided, hey, maybe it's a good idea for me to research the show. Got to be completely honest with you, I didn't know who the new host was because you had been on Reliable Sources before.
With Howard Kurtz.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I thought that was still the host. I don't watch cable news at all. The only time I know about cable news is when I find all the inaccuracies that they report about, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, Brian Stelter, I'm familiar with him. He's cool. But this Tea Party activist, I don't know how that's going to go. I did my research on her. I had very little prep in like what we're going to talk about, how the segment's going to go, how long is it going to be. Usually a producer tries to prepare you as much as possible. That wasn't the case. I didn't know what I was walking into.
But can I just say, I actually like that. I don't know if they intended it that way, probably not. But in TV, they over-prepare.
That's true.
Overproduce. And they're like, okay, and then they prepare you for hours and hours, and then you have 2 minutes.
Right.
And what was that all about, right?
Yes.
So, you know, the fact that you guys kind of relatively went in cold, I don't mind at all. And, the way you came out so strong, not knowing what the topics are, man, that was even more impressive.
So let me show you guys the clips. There's 2 clips. The entire interview was about 5 minutes long. We're not going to show you the full thing, but the 2 clips that I chose will kind of give you the gist of how the discussion went. Let's take a look at the first one.
Let me try out a theory on both of you. Anna, you first. Many journalists, many members of the media are deaf to the frustration in the country, maybe because journalists, at least major media outlets, tend to be paid more than the average American, or because they live in big urban cities instead of in the heartland. What do you think of that theory, Anna?
Well, I think that it's true, especially of establishment media, to be completely honest with you, because the same types of components that corrupt our politicians, I think, also corrupt mainstream media. So it's really difficult for mainstream, let's say, cable outlets to talk about things like income inequality, wealth inequality, when the advertisers that are funding their shows are the same corporations that want to ensure that the same system continues. So I think when people watch digital media or new media, they get a completely different message. They focus on the issues that matter or resonate more with the constituency.
Scottie, I know you have a different political perspective, but do you buy into that argument?
Well, she makes some very good points, but honestly, I disagree, because in journalism, we know if it bleeds, it leads. And we're not just talking about the physical. You know, when we're $19 trillion in debt, when we have 94 million people out of the workforce right now, we see terrorism issues not only abroad, but here at home. Those are the stories that are leading our headlines. And so a journalist has to have their head completely in the sand if they don't realize that that is what people are watching, and the ratings show that those types of headlines make it. So I actually think journalists do know about the anger. If anything, they've not necessarily tried to feed it, but haven't done anything to definitely try to put the warm and fuzzy stories as their headline.
First of all, no one said anything about warm and fuzzy stories. Income inequality, wealth inequality, those are not warm and fuzzy issues. But
they are to Republicans.
I guess so.
Because they're on the right side of the inequality.
So she is the epitome of what journalists aren't supposed to be. And I'm not just saying this to insult her when she can't really defend herself. When you make the statement, when it bleeds, it leads, that goes against the whole point of journalism. It's not about, oh my God, what's going to get the most ratings. If you focus on what's going to get you the ratings and ignore actual news, then you're not doing what a journalist is supposed to do, right?
Yeah, but I'm not at all surprised by that, because she's a Tea Party person supporting Trump. It's journalism. Journalism. Amusing. But what I love there is 2 things that you did. One was you came into CNN's house and you lit a match. Okay. So, no disrespect. That's only partly true. I've been on CNN many times. I know Brian a little bit, and God bless him for having you on, and that's thoughtful and all that. But you're like, look, you asked me a direct question about what's wrong with the media, and I'm going to tell you the right answer. It's that you guys are getting paid by the same guys that are part of the establishment. And almost no one ever says that on TV.
Well, that's because when you say that, and when you walk into someone's house and you insult them, which is basically what I did, they're not going to invite you back, right?
Yeah.
And so before I did the interview, I made a decision, and I decided that I don't care if I get invited on CNN again. CNN is not my goal, right? It's not what I aspire to do with my career. And so what I'm doing right now is what I aspire to do. I love it. I get to speak about issues that matter, and I get to say what I want to say without anyone, including Cenk, telling me, you can't say that. And it's a great feeling. And if I'm not going to be wealthy, if I'm not going to be famous, I don't care, right? As long as I feel fulfilled. So I went in there knowing I'm probably going to destroy any chance I have of ever going on CNN again, and that's fine. So that's how I felt about it.
Dude, I almost want to raise your hand and declare you champion. Okay, so the second thing that I love that you did there was you somehow got her totally off her talking point and into what she actually believes. So here's what I mean by that. She normally is supposed to come on and yell at the liberal media. And Stelter asked a question that would normally tee her up to do that, right? No pun intended, tea. Since she's from the Tea Party. But you turn around and you're like, yeah, no, the media is bad because they actually represent the propaganda that the establishment wants. And she's like, wait, okay, but wait a minute, that propaganda is really good. I want that propaganda. Be scared of terrorism and all these people are out of work and the deficit. That's the propaganda they've been pushing. The media has played along with it. So if you actually push her, she's actually going to defend the media because they're her best friend.
No, but the incredible thing is she proved my point for me. So I went up there and said, hey, they're not talking about the issues that matter, like income inequality, wealth inequality, basically talking about the economy. And she threw out this very deceptive 94 million people out of the workforce number, right? So what is it? Do you think that these issues are important or not? Because I just said they're important, we should discuss them, and you kind of just agreed with me, but then said that you disagreed with me. By the way, the 94 million statistic that she threw out there is so incredibly deceptive. The vast majority of people included in that number are retired individuals and students, okay? So no, 94 million Americans aren't just sitting on their asses not looking for work. These are people who have already worked or are still in school. And then there's 20 million Americans who are stay-at-home parents, right?
One more quick thing about that. So the actual numbers are when President Bush left office, we were losing 700,000 jobs a month. Amazing, almost 1 million jobs a month. We were bleeding jobs so badly. Now we have had a record number of months in a row where we have added jobs, literally a record in American history. So it's easy to say at any given time, 94 million people are out of work. Yeah, if you count retired people, yada, yada, right?
Yeah.
But wait, who was it better under Obama or was it better under Bush? It's 1,000,000 times better under Obama, but she doesn't want to say that. The reason she brings that up is to say, it's bad because look at this big number I threw out. I blame Obama. And what are your answers for that? Cover terrorism, so you're all scared and vote Republican, and, it's the deficit. So, and by the way, what does the media do? They do exactly what she wants. Cover terrorism wall to wall, and whenever there's an issue about economy, they don't talk about inequality, lower taxes on the rich, lower taxes on corporations. What do they talk about? Deficit.
Which, by the way, Obama has lowered the deficit considerably, right? But they won't talk about that either.
Yes, he was handed a $1.2 trillion yearly deficit, and he has brought that down about 50%.
Which is incredible. All right, so here's the second part of the video where things get a lot more heated.
I just wanted to make a statement about how a lot of the issues that matter the most to the electorate don't get covered at all. So let me give you a quick example of that.
Yeah.
Student loan debt is one of them. That is impacting our economy in one of the most negative ways imaginable, and we're sitting here having discussions about immigration and building walls. Right now, if you focus on the actual numbers, and this is according to Pew Research, immigration from Mexico is below net zero. What does that mean? That we have more Mexican immigrants leaving the country right now than coming in. And instead of focusing on issues that actually matter to millennial voters, for instance, we're focusing on non-issues in the country. The fear-mongering about Muslims and terrorism. Go
I
ahead,
hate to tell
Scottie.
you this.
Please tell
There's
me what you
more.
need to say.
No. Well, I hate to tell you this. There's more in this world than just millennials. And I'm sorry. I agree. College debt's a big issue. But when people are actually scared for their lives, that is the headline right there. So I agree. And it also looks at party lines. But I think across the board, both parties right now have let their constituencies down. And the media is just sitting there telling the stories. I mean, I'm sorry. If there was a terrorist action that happened in the United States and they let off with college debt, I would consider that media outlet to be a complete joke.
Okay, so you think that our current economic situation in the United States is not a big deal? You'd rather fearmonger about non-existent threats inside the United States as opposed to focusing on the issues that are burdening our economy. And by the way, student loan debt doesn't just impact students. It also impacts you, and it impacts our economy, because how are millennials supposed to contribute to our economy when we're burdened with student loan debt, when we're dealing with a system that's corrupt, when 62 richest people in the world own more wealth than the bottom 3.5 billion people in the world? How are you going to talk to me about, oh, these issues don't matter?
I don't
yeah,
want to
you
play
do,
ref, but I
especially
do
when
think
I'm
it's
on
worth.
with her.
Damn. Did you drop the mic at the end?
No. When he said, I have to play referee here, I was like, yeah, well, here's the thing. You brought me on with a conservative. Let me do my thing, right? Isn't this what you guys wanted? And I don't like being equated with her because I'm not in the same camp as her. I am not extreme in my views. My views are things that I have not only researched, I've been talking about for years now, right? If I'm ever wrong, the audience holds me accountable and I correct my mistakes. I am not on the same camp as that woman, right? I am not the opposite extreme of a Tea Party activist. So that pissed me off, and that's why I felt like, you know what? Yeah, you do have to play referee. If I'm on with her, then play referee. That's your role here, isn't it?
Right, because apparently you're coming for it. Okay, so I see, that's interesting. I didn't know that they didn't prep you, because I thought for sure they prepped you about immigration, because you pulled that net zero on immigration. I was like, damn.
Because I know my shit. I'm not on the same camp as her. I'm not. And I'm not doing this to toot my own horn. I take the news seriously. I love doing what I do, right? And I'm not going to half-ass it. I'm going to make sure that I come correct with facts. I'm not going to have talking points prepared. And so, I'm glad that it went the way that it went. But I don't know if that resonated with anyone. I don't know if that's going to change the way the current system is. But I know that there are people online who saw that and they felt it. And I love that.
Yeah, because again, two things as to why that resonated. One is, how often do people come on TV and say, hey, no, you're missing the whole story. The story is, like you said, 62 people in the world have as much money as 3.5 billion people. So now you guys never talk about that, because you're funded by those 62 people in a lot of ways. So I'm going to talk about it, whether you like it or you don't like it. And what does she do? She falls back on what she does, because she's not a journalist. She does propaganda.
Yeah.
So she's like, hey, if it bleeds, it leads. If there's terrorism, I'm sorry, we're not going to talk about college debt. No, but nobody's saying right after a bomb goes off, I need you to talk about college debt.
That's exactly
We're
it,
saying, hey, at some point, can we have a discussion about college debt and how it not only, as Anna pointed out in that segment, hurts the people who have it, but it hurts the economy because they don't have the money to spend elsewhere, buying cars, buying houses, et cetera, and how it depresses the economy overall. If you think that's not important or that's not relevant, then you're obviously not paying attention. So if you pretend to care about the economy, then you would care about this.
Exactly.
But she doesn't. She cares about her propaganda. You threw her for so many loops. That's why she had that face on it most of the time, like what? And that was a joy to watch.
I know. It's just words of wisdom if anyone wants to be on TV and get into these debates. If you are disagreeing with someone, it's better to not make those faces because you just come off as unprofessional, right? So if she was punching me in my face as we're doing this this segment, yeah, it would suck, but it just makes you look petty when you're rolling your eyes and shaking your head, right? Come correct with some facts. That's totally fine. But she had nothing, and she had no idea what she was walking into. I don't think CNN had any idea what they were doing when they invited me on.
So, well, who knows? I believe though that it went so well that they might do it again. So look. Lastly, if she's going to fearmonger on whether it's terrorism or immigration, and then you say immigration is below net zero, well, you just pulled a rug out from underneath her. That's why she's got nothing but a face left. Like for the how do you respond to that? You can't respond to that because it's obvious what you're doing. You're fear mongering about non-relevant issues as you bring those on. And I got to say that for decades, we've covered it on the show. Republicans and conservatives roll over liberals on cable television, right? My dad was just rewatching Brave New Films outfoxed, and they explain there that Fox News on purpose will bring on liberals so that they can steamroll them. They'll bring on weaker liberals, ones who go, well, you're largely right, but, right? So I love how TYT you were like, no, we don't get steamrolled. We are the steamroller.